Welcome to my plan for the first dual motor ORV chassis in the world. And if it's not the first because, well, I'm not prepared, well then it'll be the first six-wheel dual motor ORV chassis in the world. And if I'm not there first either, it'll have to be the first one using dual 380 motors. So Phil announced the chassis on the 1st of June. A lot of hype, a lot of excitement about what it was going to be. Revealed as the ORV off-road vehicle chassis, so the Monster Beetle, the Blackfoot, the Frog, or the I say Mud Blaster, I mean Mud Blaster, I guess. Monster Beetle, the Blackfoot, the Frog. What is it? Brat. It's the one I most like. If it had been my favourite chassis, the BTO1, I would currently be stitching together two motor ends of that chassis that have arrived today, stitch those together and find how I can possibly make that work. They're not designed to interlock. I'd find a way to Dremel around them and rejoin them and make those two fight together. And that would be a dual motor, four-wheel drive chassis and be awesome. So then Phil threw a curveball and said, no, it's the ORV chassis off-road vehicle. And I don't know what to do. But I do now, but I didn't then. Didn't know what to do. I fully respect everybody running their old vintage ones, buying new ones and racing them. Some combinations of new and wonderful tires to put on them, all that kind of stuff. Absolutely love all of that. It's not for me. I don't like things to be... I don't like them to be normal. And I'm not saying those are overly normal, but I'm saying my feel, it just has to be a bit more nuts than that. So I was going to go dual motor, and well, I am going to go dual motor. I'm going to use... I don't have my ORV just yet. That's arriving on Saturday. And I'm racing on Saturday, so that's going to be exciting. My ORV arrives on Saturday. I'm going to need two of them because reasons, two motors. And I've got a couple of demonstrations here out of like a grasshopper chassis, last year's chassis. One I say one I didn't break, but this is one that is gifted to me. Thank you, Tommy. And I don't have an ORV gearbox anywhere, so I have some kind of big chunky round things that I can talk to you about them being ballpark like a gearbox. And talk you through the things that I went through about what could possibly work to make a dual motor ORV. I do need to say massive thanks to Tom of Scale Bodge Not Built. He is helping me every step of the way with quite how the design of that is going to work. I believe he's going to run a sister car to mine, and I'm totally pleased and totally impressed that he's going to do that. The nature of it is this car can only be running open. There's no way it can enter any other class. We'll talk about what my plan is, and then I guess we'll wrap the video up because there's not an awful lot to look at. So with the objects I've got to hand, I'm going to talk you through the two different ways I can envisage building a dual motor ORV chassis. Now, as I say, I don't have an ORV chassis of any shape, form at all right now. So we're going to pretend that this is the plastic front end of an ORV. Yes, I know it doesn't look anything like it. Yes, I know this black in this low level lighting, because it's now, I don't know, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, is not great, but that's the front end of like your, let's say Monster Beetle, because that's in the thumbnail. These here, they're not representing wheels. These are representing the ORV gearbox. And if you're going to do dual motor, you're going to have to go dual gearbox. And to represent that, look, I've got these two little motors in here. So we know these are gearboxes. Fine. There are two ways I can see of it being feasible to make a dual motor system work. Those two ways, and I'll go with the way that I didn't choose first, just to float it past you. If anyone's interested about taking it on as a project, it should be a neat project. If you take your two gearboxes and you build them mirrored to each other, so build one the normal regular way around and build one with the motor sticking out the other side. So the gearbox, I guess in actual fact what I should do is place this differently. The motor sticking out of the opposite side of traditional, run that through. You can do something where you would mount these gearboxes back together. Now, that creates a little bit of a problem. It creates a bit of a problem with how you mount that onto the chassis, but actually the whole system there, you could trim down the supports, etc., to be able to make that fit in the normal way. That would work. The biggest issue is actually about drivetrain itself. The second biggest issue is about drivetrain itself. If you have a system like this, where you've only got a drive shaft of one out of each side of the gearbox, then basically the car won't move. You have the regular differential, whichever end is not connected, it's just going to spin freely, and you'll lose all your power through that. The truck won't move forward at all. So you can't do it with a open diff. You can't, in this orientation, you can't do it with like some kind of connector between your diffs either, because they'd want to be doing the same operation. So actually still spin it in the same way. What you could do, consider that this motor only needs to drive the rear left wheel and this motor only needs to drive the rear right wheel. If you lock those diffs, great, your motor was only driving one thing anyway. So you can either do it with a fixed spool. I know Russ put one of those metal one by Hot Racing or somebody, so that one motor drives the wheel and there's no losses anywhere. There's no differential anywhere in that. The problem is, I think that would be entirely reasonable for a regular Tamiya speed truck. So if you've got 540 silver can motors, it'll be awesome. It'll be a lot of fun. You do have to do things like make sure there's no motor timing on the systems, or that they're set with one set to run clockwise and one set to run counterclockwise. So make sure you handle that in terms of the overall zero can timing, compatible electronic timing if you're doing brushless, and 2 ESCs, away you go. The wrinkle is, you get up to any amount of speed, and any mismatch in the batteries and the ESCs and the motors themselves, or even drivetrain losses, this thing will torque vector like you wouldn't believe. So, you know, if one motor runs slightly faster than the other, that'll cause the entire chassis to turn, and it'll be an uncontrollable nightmare. It might be good for 20-30 mile an hour and fun for those. So I mentioned this whole scheme of 2 gearboxes, bolt them through back to back. You would have to mount the motors into the gearbox plates first, and then kind of use the other bolts through the gearbox to bind these together with like a small space between them, something like that. And that would definitely be fun. You would fit in a regular 4-wheel footprint of a monster Beetle or whatever, and you'd have this torque vectoring, which could even be possibly fun thing to do. But I don't think it's going to work for the speeds I want to hit. I heard someone saying 60 mile an hour is their kind of goal. If they hit that, that would be amazing. I haven't checked gear ratios. I'm nowhere near that. But I want to go faster than 60. I managed more than 60 with a grasshopper, so I want more than 60 out of this. Fine. So I'm not doing that approach. The alternative approach is to use 2 gearboxes. You still have to use 2 gearboxes, but mount them in line. So one gearbox behind the other gearbox. That solves any of that concern. You go, okay, so how do you do your wheels? Well, actually, that's what my thumbnail is all about. Set of unpaired wheels at the front, and then one powered axle in the middle and one powered axle at the rear. 6-wheeled monster, 4-wheel drive, and 2 undriven ones at the very front there. You can do that with a open diff or whatever. The gearboxes can be effectively standard. There is one major complication with that, and the complication is, on an ORV, and I don't have it, I guess I'll find a picture. That's probably the best thing. I'll overlay a picture somewhere here to show you about the swing arms on an ORV. So anyone who's got an ORV will go, yeah, the swing arm mounts here and runs here, and the drive shaft out of the gearbox runs into that, and that's where your wheel sits. So apply the same plan. How would you work the swing arm for the rear gearbox? And the answer is, well, it has to hang somewhere off the kind of place that is taken up by the drive shaft on this one. It's a logistical nightmare. I'm sure somebody could make it work. That person is not me. So Tom and I do have an alternative plan. I'm not going to share that right now, but we are currently working through it, and we are very confident we have an answer for making that work. Some people, if you're paying attention to the Poor Boys RC Speedrun Challenge chat, you might see the answer skate past. I will definitely cover it in more detail at this point next week. So that's the plan, and that's where my thumbnail comes from. 6 wheels, 4-wheel driven, 2 motors, 2 SCs, 2 batteries, 1 receiver. Hard work for me for everything about that build. The only unknown in that space, and the one that I really want to call out to the community for help for what they would like to see me build, is I've got basically 2 ways of going with the motor. Do I go with a super hot 540 motor, kind of like I had in my in Tomley's Grasshopper Evo, which is a 3.5 turn motor with a Castle Creations ESC? Or do I go in the direction of the drag hopper and run a pair of 388.5 turn motors with loads of boost and timing? I don't think Tomley's car could possibly be running with all that amount of boost and timing. I think that ESC couldn't actually cope with it on that 3.5 turn motor. The drag hopper was 100 amp ESC, and so actually I'd be looking at 130 amp ESCs, and I could really throw 60 plus degrees of timing at it. It'd be amazing. So those are the 2 different approaches. I'm confident I can wind up a 380 motor way hotter and have it just, yeah, I think the difference between them is going to be fairly marginal. So you tell me in the comments, 3.5 turn 540 or 8.5 turn 380, pair of those. Whichever set of comments most encourages me, and that's the one I'm going to go with. I had to get this video made because otherwise it's not the plan for the world's first 2-motor ORV. It'll be overtaken by Bryce, who I know is heading somewhere exciting in the same direction. I've heard similar noises out of a few other people, so this, well, it's definitely not the only 6-wheeler you're going to see. At least Tom on Scale Bodge Not Built is definitely building one. I can't wait to see what other people come up with. Bryce, I'm looking out for yours. Tonic, I have no idea which direction you're going in, but I can't wait to see it, and I know you're not going to let anything out before you get there. So that's me. Empty box, no car, some parts to talk through some stuff. Next week, I will have at least some of a monster Beetle built for you. Look out for that. It's one of the few times I'm going to say like and subscribe, because you are going to want to see this thing get built. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.